tyrants do not emerge in stable societies. They rise when the ground beneath a society is already cracked, economically, politically, and psychologically. History shows a consistent pattern. Before absolute power is accepted, trust in the existing order must first collapse. Economic distress is often the first signal. Inflation destroys savings. Unemployment removes purpose. Scarcity turns everyday life into a struggle. When survival becomes uncertain, abstract ideals like constitutional balance or separation of powers lose their urgency. But material hardship alone is not enough. What truly destabilizes a society is loss of dignity, defeat in war, the collapse of an empire, the feeling that a nation has fallen from greatness into humiliation. After the French Revolution, France was exhausted. Liberty had been promised, but chaos followed. Governments rose and fell rapidly. Political violence was common. Hunger persisted. In that environment, people did not dream of emperors. They longed for order. Germany after World War I faced a similar rupture. The Treaty of Versailles symbolized humiliation. Hyperinflation wiped out the middle class. Democratic institutions existed, but few trusted them. Parliamentary debates felt disconnected from real suffering. This pattern repeats across centuries. When institutions appear weak, corrupt, or ineffective, people stop believing they can protect them. The crucial insight is this: people do not seek tyranny. They seek certainty, order, and dignity. That desire prepares the soil. Tyrants do not begin with repression. They begin with hope. They enter societies overwhelmed by complexity and offer something deeply attractive: a simple explanation. Where reality is tangled, they offer clarity. Where problems have many causes, they identify one. Where people feel powerless, they promise control. This is not ignorance. It is persuasion. Complex systems are slow and difficult to fix. Tyrants bypass complexity by reframing suffering as betrayal. The nation, they claim, has not failed because reality is hard. It has failed because the wrong people are in charge. They identify enemies, corrupt elites, internal traitors, foreign forces. And then they perform the most important maneuver of all. They place themselves outside the system, not as politicians, but as solutions. Napoleon Bonaparte rose as a general who succeeded where civilian governments failed. Each military victory reinforced the idea that competence mattered more than process. By the time he crowned himself, many French citizens saw not a dictator, but stability made flesh. Julius Caesar followed a similar path centuries earlier. Rome's republic was paralyzed by elite infighting and social inequality. Caesar presented himself as the champion of the people against a corrupt Senate. When he crossed the Rubicon, many Romans saw it not as treason, but as decisive leadership. In the 20th century, Adolf Hitler framed himself as the only man capable of restoring German pride. His early appeal was not terror, but belief. Belief that decline was reversible, humiliation temporary, and greatness inevitable. The message is always the same. The system failed you. I understand why, and I alone can fix it. Once belief begins, the leader must stop being merely human. He must become an idea. This transformation is deliberate. Visual symbolism plays a central role. Uniforms communicate discipline. Architecture communicates permanence. Public appearances are carefully staged to emphasize scale. The leader elevated, the crowd unified below. Art becomes propaganda, not through lies, but through selective truth. Napoleon commissioned paintings that showed him calm and heroic amid chaos. crossing the Alps, commanding battles, radiating inevitability. Weakness disappeared. Doubt was erased. In the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin was gradually transformed from party bureaucrat into an almost mythic figure. Portraits showed him serene, paternal, timeless. His image filled factories, schools, and homes until authority felt omnipresent. Leaders are rarely shown within the crowd. They stand above it, physically and symbolically. They appear tireless, decisive, historically destined. The psychological effect is profound. People stop following a man. They start following a myth. And myths feel harder to challenge than humans. To unify millions, tyrants simplify morality. They divide the world. There is an us, loyal, virtuous, deserving, and there is a them, enemies, traitors, saboteurs. Opposition is no longer disagreement. It becomes danger. This strategy appears everywhere in history. In revolutionary France, enemies of the revolution were labeled threats to liberty itself. In Stalin's Soviet Union, political dissent was equated with betrayal of the working class. In Nazi Germany, this division was taken to its most extreme form. Under Adolf Hitler, society was reorganized around a rigid moral hierarchy. Germans of so-called Aryan descent were portrayed as the natural elite, disciplined, productive, historically destined to rule. They were presented not merely as citizens, but as the biological future of the nation. Others were defined in opposition to this ideal. Jews were depicted as corrupting forces, disloyal, manipulative, responsible for economic hardship and moral decay. Roma were framed as antisocial outsiders. Homosexuals were portrayed as threats to demographic survival. Political opponents were labeled traitors. Each group was stripped of individuality and reduced to a category. This was not only racism, it was moral engineering. By redefining entire groups as dangerous or inferior, the regime transformed persecution into protection. Violence became preventative. Exclusion became duty. Cruelty was reframed as responsibility. Belief does not require constant force. It requires repetition. Psychology shows that repeated ideas begin to feel true, regardless of their accuracy. When claims are echoed by authority, media, and ritual, skepticism erodes. Extraordinary measures are introduced gradually. Emergency powers are framed as temporary. Restrictions are described as protection. Each step, taken alone, feels survivable. In Rome, Caesar's powers were extended incrementally. In Germany, emergency decrees normalized authoritarian control. In the Soviet Union, purges were justified as necessary defenses of the revolution. Tyranny rarely arrives with a single dramatic moment. It settles in slowly. Once belief has been established, tyrants move to control not just power, but perception. Propaganda is the tool that makes authority feel natural. It does not always rely on obvious lies. More often, it works through repetition, omission, and emotional framing. By controlling what people see, hear, and remember, tyrants reshape reality itself. In ancient Rome, Julius Caesar carefully crafted his public image through coins, statues, and written accounts of his campaigns. His own commentaries portrayed him as rational, restrained, and always acting in Rome's best interest, even when breaking its laws. Control of narrative preceded control of the state. Centuries later, propaganda became industrialized. In Nazi Germany, rallies, posters, radio broadcasts, and films created a constant emotional atmosphere. Messages were simple, repetitive, and visual. Strength, unity, and destiny were emphasized. Doubt was never argued against. It was drowned out. By surrounding people with the same ideas everywhere, belief began to feel like common sense. In the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin used propaganda to rewrite reality itself. Photographs were altered. Former allies disappeared from images and history books. The state did not merely promote one version of events, it eliminated alternatives. When only one story exists, questioning it feels irrational. But propaganda alone is not enough. Aggression plays a complementary role. Tyrants use selective violence, not constant terror. Aggression is applied strategically, to set examples, to test limits, to create fear without total collapse. Early acts of violence are often framed as necessary, defensive, or temporary. Opponents are arrested for stability. Enemies are attacked for security. Wars are justified as prevention, not expansion. This is not ancient history. It is a pattern rooted in human psychology. Tyrants do not emerge in moments of satisfaction. They grow in the space between expectation and reality, when promises remain unfulfilled, when daily life feels unfair, and when people sense that the system no longer listens. In times of fear and dissatisfaction, charisma outperforms competence. Confidence is mistaken for correctness. Certainty feels safer than freedom. Widespread frustration creates the emotional energy that tyrants draw from. Economic pressure, social inequality, and perceived humiliation accumulate quietly until resentment seeks an outlet. Tyrants do not create this discontent. They harness it. They give it language, direction, and a target. And if you recognize any of these strategies in modern time, let us know in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and I see you next week.